Habari Gani. All right, all right. Uh, we're just really happy to see everybody who's here and those who are joining us on the YouTube for this important lecture today. I just want to start off by saying that throughout the African world, we are attuned to many different issues. And even yesterday, we had a conversation about the fact that in Sudan, as well as in the Congo, there are wars that are raging, which are much more brutal in many ways than the wars that we know about from the Western press. And we know, for example, about the war in Ukraine, and we know about the war in Southwest Asia, Israel and Palestinians. But very few people talk about the thousands of people who have been killed in the Congo, the hundreds of women who have been raped and brutalized in the Congo, or the people who are fighting right today, right now in the Sudan. We don't have many conversations about that. And in fact, what we have come to know is that those who control the media outlets have always controlled it to the privilege of the West. In other words, if the information is not information that impacts the West or impacts the United States or France or Germany or England, we probably won't know what's going on in the rest of the world. It's a very strange thing. It's like we're living in a box, and in this box, we're cut off from all of the stuff that's going on with the rest of the 8 billion people on the face of the earth. And we just simply are keyed in to a particular war, a particular region of the world, and we forget that right now in the Congo, you have 5 or 6 nations who are supporting rebel groups because they are trying to control the minerals of Congo. And so you got people who are supporting various rebel factions. And these factions have been fighting, killing people, forcing people to work in the mines. It's not just done in Congo. We know that it was done also by the Wagner Group in Central African Republic. It's the same thing. You get people working and digging for diamonds and gold or titanium or coltan, and you get these people fighting throughout the world, throughout Africa, to create a situation where Africa itself is in turmoil. Well, we ought to be aware as we can, and what we try to do here at the Maleficate Asante Institute is to make our community aware of what's going on in the world, as well as locally, to try to make the community aware of what is going on locally. That's important, and it's very, very significant for us. So I want to give you an update in terms of where we are in terms of our schedule. Our next presentation will be November the 26th. And at that presentation, Dr. Na Dove will be speaking on an Afrocentric curriculum for our children. And this is a very important thing because without an Afrocentric curriculum, a curriculum that's centered on the African child as an agent, as a central figure in history, as a central personality, and African history at the core of world history, if we don't start from there, all education that we learn is wrong. It is incorrect. So the best way to give us this proper information is to make certain that we understand this information. So we're delighted. We're happy today about information and knowledge. There's so much to know, and I want to just also say that we appreciate all the support that we have gotten. We have a wide internet, YouTube audience coming from all the way from Brother Mutu all the time in Paris, and brothers and sisters in South Africa and Brazil who also own with us, and throughout the United States of America and South America as well. So we're really happy, and we're pleased today to have an outstanding speaker. And I tell you, I'm going to let the actual associate director of the Malefic Kete Asante Institute, who is a very dynamic brother, a very outstanding presenter himself, but who is devoted and dedicated and committed to the African American community here in Philadelphia. He's a brother who's often been considered the most popular professor at Temple when they give him a course to teach. I mean, really, part of it is they want to keep him from his courses, and that's another thing. But I'm not going to get into that today because this is not Temple here. This is the MKA Institute where we speak freely. So, and we have a free audience, and we are free speaking people. But I just, you go, all of us, we come to these institutions and we come to these places and we don't know what we all have gone through. But the brother has just published a book, Afrocentricity and Afrofuturism, published by the University of Mississippi Press, and we intend to have a book signing for him here in a few weeks at the Malefic Kete Asante Institute. We're very proud of Brother Jabali Ade, and we're going to ask him at this time. I see shirts. I see Lincoln shirts, and I see Cheney shirts, but I'm gonna ask Brother Ade, who is a mediator, to come and introduce our speaker. Thank you, brother.
Yeah, I'm neutral. Like in LA, let them know. Hotep, everybody. Woo! A time like this. They say, you sound excited today, Professor. I said, because I'm not the one speaking. In this climate today, boy, they got watch lists and websites. They reporting people for telling the truth, like McCarthyism out here today. So I'm really encouraged, and I'm excited to learn, and I'm not going to talk too much about his biography because I love the fact that he infuses that into his presentations. But I'd be remiss if I didn't mention Cheney University. And I know there's some recent, accolades as well that you could share about, some inductions. But this brother epitomizes fearlessness and strategy. And I remember watching everything from Shaka Zulu to Malcolm when he would debate like 3 and 4, races at the same time. And it would give you hope, watching Farrakhan on Donahue. And, I like to see people who know how to navigate, know how to do it, and aren't scared. So with all this going on in the world, I'm welcoming this break that I'm taking from public speaking for a few days. But I'm happy to have before you the man of the hour, the angriest black man in America, to give us some clarity. I was so reassured when I saw that Daniel Cameron lost, as significantly as he did. And I said, people are listening to these people who are giving us these cues and these clues about how to navigate these spaces. Even though we debate and sometimes it can be contentious, I love the fact that the work is not in vain. So I really look forward to him helping to move us forward again today, talking about politics from an Afrocentric and fearless perspective. The one and only angriest black man in America, Michael Coard.
I have to tell you, that was one of the best introductions I've ever had. And actually, I came here to talk about the election, but I hear from Dr. Asante and Dr. Aaron Smith, they talked about Cheney and Lincoln. Yeah. So I had to bring my jacket today. Here it is, African Institute. Many people think that Cheney was initially named the Institute for Colored Youth.
That's right.
It was not. It was initially the African Institute. And then a couple months later, it changed to the Institute for Colored Youth. What else do I have on here? Cheney here. I got Michael X here. I got African Institute here. I got HBCU. And by the way, those who connect themselves with Lincoln University, I'm not going to hate. Let me just say this. If you do the math, 1837 and 1854 seems like a 17-year difference. But this is what I tell people in all seriousness. There are actually about 3 or 4 first HBCUs, because you got Cheney, the first institution of higher learning. Cheney didn't start as a college. At that time, to become a teacher, you didn't need to go to college. You had to go to a training institute, and then ultimately became a university. And by the way, Lincoln started out not as Lincoln University, but Ashland Institute. I give Lincoln credit because Lincoln was the first degree granting institution. But then you go to Ohio, to Wilberforce. Wilberforce was the first black owned and operated HBCU. So all 3 can claim it. I just tell black high school students, go to any one of the 104 HBCUs and you'll be doing the right thing. And Dr. Asante told me I had like about 3 or 4 hours to speak, so I figured I would take those first 3 minutes. But in all seriousness, what I want to do here is to spend maybe 30 minutes and then engage in first it'll be my presentation, then it'll be either a discussion, thank you, it'll be a discussion and or debate. And I love healthy debates because I always tell people, and this is critically important, when people think they know everything, they know nothing. I mean, that's what it comes down to. Right. I always say to people that when it comes, you ever notice that people who are younger, they think they know everything until they get a little older. Right. And then they think they know everything. Then they get a little older. It's like kids in school, you know everything about your block, but you don't know about the city. And then you know about the city, but you don't know about the state. Right. And then, so it's all about what I say, the more you know, the less you know. Let me repeat that. The more you know, the less you know. Because intellect and knowledge is like a ladder that not only goes up, it goes out. Because you don't know what you don't know. There's so much stuff out there that you don't know. So I always, when I talk to people, I never come off as if I know everything. I'll tell you what I know based on my research from scholarly sources. And then you come back with a counter proposal with your scholarly source. And then we'll come together as reasonable people, and then we'll both learn more. I don't want to be right. I want to be knowledgeable. I could tell you that E equals MC squared. I'm right about that, but I have no idea what the hell that means. I'm just saying E equals MC squared. So it's all about knowledge and understanding. Having said that, Dr. Asante asked me to come and talk about the topic of lessons from the elections. What have we learned? And that's what I'm going to focus on. But I'm also going to talk about what we didn't learn, because that's just as important. People often say, well, how come before every primary election and how come before every general election you put out your endorsement list as if people have to listen to you? And I'm like, okay, that's a legitimate question. But this is my response. An educated, financially independent, and conscious black man is a dangerous man. That's right. Let me repeat that. Right. An educated, conscious, and financially independent black man is a dangerous man. Right. Because he can say whatever he wants to say. He don't have to worry about getting kicked out of his job or his church or his mosque or whatever. Just say what needs to be said. And for me, it's not just about being free, because we're all legally free, but we're not culturally liberated unless you can say what you want. I don't agree with everything Minister Louis Farrakhan says, but I respect the fact that he can say it. That's right. He can say it, and he doesn't give a damn about who likes it or doesn't like it. If every black man, black woman, black girl, black boy could do that, that would be perfect. But I'm not saying we all should do that, because there's a concept of the spook who sat by the door. That's right. We need folks who get into the Fortune 500 jobs and be behind enemy lines and wear the suits and ties, and we shouldn't judge them. That's right. We should give them the benefit of the doubt and say, well, maybe they're doing there to infiltrate the system. Very quickly, before I get to the essence of my topic, I don't really have any regrets in my life. One, I do. When I was in college, there was the chairman of the Cheney Board of Trustees, Judge Harvey Smith. I gave that man so much hell. I mean, I called him a handkerchief-head Negro, a sellout. I just gave him so much hell. And he passed away about maybe 12, 15 years ago, and I regret not taking the opportunity to apologize to him. And speaking of Minister Louis Farrakhan, and by the way, folks, I got notes here, but I'm freestyling. The Spirit is telling me to talk about some other stuff. When I was the senior class president at commencement, I didn't just do my angry black man thing. I did my angry, reckless black man thing. So I'm the senior class president. I got all these dignitaries out here, and I'm just going off on the handkerchief head Negro administrators and professors and all that. And Mr. Farrakhan was our guest speaker. The university had told us, senior class, that they were giving us some safe black person as the commencement speaker. We said, no, we don't want that. We gave them 3 options. You either give us Gil Scott-Heron, Dick Gregory, or Minister Louis Farrakhan. And they selected Minister Louis Farrakhan. So I'm like, yeah, I'm really going to go off now because I got this angry black man. He got my back so I can just go off. So I get up there and start speaking and calling these administrators all kind of names. And Minister Farrakhan came up and he intellectually spanked me like a caring father should do to a son. What he said was, I don't know the young brother, Michael Coard, and I know in the future he's going to do the right thing. What he doesn't realize is that the people he's attacking now put him in the position to be where he is now. If it wasn't for those professors, those administrators, Michael Coard has no idea what these black folks had to do when they went in Harrisburg to get money to keep a school going so he can get on the dean's list, so he can join a fraternity, so he can be in student government, so he can get 2 undergraduate degrees, so he could get a scholarship to law school. He said, Brother Coard, I understand your passion, your anger, and maybe 5, 10 years from now, you'll appreciate the importance of not judging black people, of giving them the benefit of the doubt. And for me, that was a powerful, powerful lesson. And I remember that to this day. So I tell young black folks, be angry, be passionate, but remember you must be strategic. Right. A wise man once said, he who loses control loses. That's right. Classic line from The Godfather when Michael talked to his brother Sonny. He said, it's not personal, Sonny, it's business. And that's what it has to be all about. Having said that, why should people listen to my endorsements in the May primaries and in the general election? It's very simple. To whom much is given, much is required. I was able to go to a great school, Masterman, get their information, their education. I was able to go to a great school, Cheney, and get 2 degrees. I was able to go to law school and get a law school degree, pass the bar exam, become an attorney. So I got access to all of this stuff. And at the same time, I'm keeping my blackness. Right. When I went to law school, I was really naive. I thought that all the black students there were there to start the revolution. I thought all the women there were there to end sexism. I thought all the gays were there to stop homophobia. None of them gave a damn about any of that. It was all about getting jobs. And I was like really naive because I didn't realize that's what it was about. And as I got older and I looked around, you look at all these so-called successful black folks, doctors, lawyers, accountants, professors. You ask millionaires, billionaires, why haven't we overcome? We got all these great black folks, all these resources. The reason is some black people want to be whiter than some white people. That's right. You know, we're going to talk more about the election in the next few minutes, but it's embarrassing for me whether you agree with everything that DA Larry Krasner has done or not. It's embarrassing for me that a white boy had to come along and shake the system up. That's right. Just do stuff that everybody else was afraid to do. And I'm like, and I call Larry Krasner the blackest white guy I know. That's right. And I'm embarrassed that I can't point to some other black elected official and say they took, anytime the FOP takes out a billboard to get you removed from office, what does that tell you? The cops are the enemy of black people. That's right. They hate this white elected official. Why do these white racist cops who came out of the so-called slave patrols historically, why do they hate this black guy, this white guy so much, but they don't complain too much about the black elected officials? You got to ask yourself about that. I'm not saying that all black folks are sellouts, nothing like that, but I wish I could point to a black elected official who was so outspoken that Republicans in Harrisburg tried to remove him from office. That's right. Think about that. I'm talking about from Lackawanna, Susquehanna County, and all those places. They wanted to get rid of him. So when it comes to elections, we have to ask ourselves, what do we do? But let me get back to my point, because sometimes I meander, so if I forget where I am, just bring me back. So why should people listen to me? Well, as I mentioned, I have access to resources and information that the average person doesn't have. The average person has to work 5 days a week, 40, 50 hours a week, got family, got bills, got all that kind of stuff. And I'm not saying I'm rich, but I'm doing okay. And I don't have any children, I don't have a wife, I don't have a job that I have to go to. I can just access all that information because I'm not just legally free, I'm culturally liberated. So now I can pretty much do anything that I want. And people often, when they introduce me for programs like this, they talk about all the stuff that I've done, and egotistically, that makes me feel good. But what I always say is, it shouldn't just be about people introducing me and talking about the great stuff that I've done. It reminds me of the story I often tell, where there are 10 of us privates on the battlefield, and the sergeant comes along and says, hey, if one of you volunteers and takes that hill, it's going to be a suicide mission. But by taking that hill, you're going to help us win this battle. If we win this battle, we'll ultimately win the war. Sergeant says, I'm going to turn my back. When I turn around, whoever steps forward, that's the volunteer to take the hill. Sergeant turns his back, he turns back around, he sees Michael Coard standing forward, and he's praising me, acknowledging me, commending me. What he doesn't realize is this: I never stepped forward. The 9 cowards stepped back. So when we look at all these black elected officials and ministers and imams and all that, they should be doing the very thing. Even if you're not going to step forward, damn it, don't step back. At least stand your ground. And sadly, many of us don't stand our ground. So we got that. So I have access to the resources. And the other thing is this: I don't want a job from any elected official. I don't want a grant from any elected official. I don't want a contract. I don't want anything personally. So I got all this stuff myself. I love black people. I got the information. That's why folks should listen, because I have no hidden agenda. There's nothing that I want from this system. You know, I could tell you the real story about an incident I had several years ago. If I told you, I'd have to kill you, and I don't want to kill you. But some big-time moving shaker asked me to run for a certain office, not so much to win, but to drain votes from somebody else, and guaranteed me a job in the general counsel's office of a major corporation in Center City. I was offended that he even asked me. I'm like, what, you know, not only, I never told him, I'm like, I'm not going to tell you the language that I use. I'm like, why would you even come at me like that? Like, you must have thought that I was one of them. And I can understand why he thought I was one of them, because most of us are them. Most of us would take that job in order to help yourself. But it's no way I'd be able to look myself in the mirror if I did that. So I'm not beholden to anybody. I don't need any money. I don't need a job. I don't want a grant. I just want liberation for my people. Right. I understand that I am where I am today because of what my ancestors did. I understand that I was raised by my mother, my grandmother, and my grandfather. And these were laborers. My grandmother worked at a hotel, my grandfather worked in a farm, and my mom worked on the assembly line. So they really didn't have access to any information. Born and raised in the hood, finally I got lucky. And this is another thing. I'm here today talking to you as an attorney and activist and radio show and TV show and adjunct professional, all that kind of stuff, not because I'm great, but because people laid the foundation. And the first foundation that was laid was a 3rd grade teacher at Pratt Arnold. That's why I was clapping when Dr. Santi talked about an African-centered education, because I'm born and raised in North Philly, going to this North Philly school, 22nd in Susquehanna, Pratt Arnold. And this third grade teacher, Miss Branch, she just appreciated my desire to learn. It wasn't so much that I knew a lot, it was that I wanted to know a lot. And she picked up on that. And she spent extra time with me. Lo and behold, there's a citywide test when I'm in the third grade, and I do so well, they plucked me out of that North Philly Pratt Arnold school, and they put me in Masterman. And once they put me in Masterman, I'm on my way to college and law school and all that. Many people say, well, that's a wonderful thing. That's a great American story. No, it's not. The reason why it's not is because what happened to Shaniqua, who sat next to me in Pratt Arnold? What happened to Jamal, who sat in front of me at Pratt Arnold? Instead of giving me access to Masterman's resources, why don't you give Masterman's resources to Pratt Arnold? And then the clients I represent today, the young black men, wouldn't be my clients, they'd be my partners, my associates. They'd be where they need to be. So many of us who, quote unquote, succeed in this system, we praise the system, we embrace the system, we love the system. I always say that the white man, I'm not talking about every white man, I'm talking about the system of white supremacy. I say the white man is an evil genius, an evil genius. He's been able to get our so-called best and brightest and make them soldiers for him. I mean, think about all the great black lawyers, great black elected officials, great black whatever. What if they thought like Malcolm? What if they thought like King? What if they thought like Garvey? As I said, the revolution would have happened a long time ago. So anyway, I got access to all this information. I stole a page from the great Congresswoman Shirley Chisholm, where she said, I am unbought and unbossed. Think about that. Unbought and unbossed. That's me. That's why when I call myself the angriest black man, I do it to a certain extent to scare white people, because when they hear about black men being angry, they think that means something crazy. But it doesn't. It's from James Baldwin, who said, paraphrasing, to be black and conscious in America is to be in a constant state of rage. Absolutely. And that makes so much sense. To be black and conscious in America is to be in a constant state of rage. There's no way you can't be angry once you find out what they're really doing to you, unless you want to become one of them. So having said that, let's talk about the election. There's good new elections, and I'm so glad Dr. Sante put out the flyer and framed it the way he did. He talked about lessons from the elections, plural, not just what happened in Philly, but what happened statewide and what happened nationwide. Now, let me just, I had to write this down because I want to make sure I don't get Dr. Asante and the MK Institute in trouble, because I'm probably going to say some stuff and I want it. I love it, I love it, I love it. Let's give them a round of applause for that. In fact, the language that I used here, and I'm going to get to it later, but I'm so glad to hear Dr. Asante say what he said. And let me just say this. I don't have to say in regard to Dr. Asante, but I, first and foremost, I love the Philadelphia Tribune. Yeah. I write for the Philadelphia Tribune. It's the longest published black-owned and operated newspaper in America. But people who become successful, black people, tend to become part of the system. So I buck the system. If the system is corrupt, you can't go along with the system. If the system is corrupt, you got to be there to destroy that system. And that's what I came to do, to destroy this unjust system. So when I write my columns, and I got to give a special shout out to Mr. Robert Bogle, the CEO of the Tribune, we don't think a lot similarly on a political level. He thinks one way, I respect it, I think another way. But what I respect about him is that he knew what I represent and still asked me to write for the Tribune. My first meeting with him about 10 years ago was like, Mr. Bogle, do you know what I say? Like, I'm not sure if what I say and do is consistent with the Tribune. But this is why I say it's so important that we not judge people. That's right. Mr. Bogle got a whole bunch of money. And the founder, Dr. Walter P. Lomax of WURD, had a whole bunch of money. Both these successful black men asked me to come and do my thing on their platform. That's right. So I could sit back and say, wow, Mr. Boo got all this money, he should be doing more. Dr. Lomax got all this money, he should be doing more. But what he's doing is putting out a business to benefit black people, and then being that spook who sat by the door that cracks it open for Michael Coard to come in. And once I come in, I can just go off and do what I need to do. And that's why it's so important for us to do the right thing. It's not that I want to acknowledge, we talked earlier about elected officials, but every now and then there are some elected officials who do the right thing. That's right. I can't believe we have an elected official who just came here. I'm not sure if he knows this is the MKA Institute and this is Black Revolution, but despite that, City Commissioner Omar Sabir just came in. Let's give him a round of applause. And for me, that's important because he's an elected official. And black elected officials often stay away from things like this. They don't want to be seen around the troublemakers because Massa could be upset. So I wanted to give him a big shout out for that. But having said that, so why am I here to talk to you about the election? More important, why should you be here listening to what I said? The answer is unbought and unbossed and access to information. So now I'm that dangerous man that can pass the information to you all. Having said that, let me start by talking about the Philadelphia election. And one of the things that a lot of folks don't get, even my revolutionary comrades don't get, sometimes they get all caught up in their feelings and they get emotional. And once they do that, they don't think rationally. I didn't endorse Sherelle Parker. I endorsed Helen Gim. But when Sherelle Parker won, I gave her the accolades. I said that she ran a flawless campaign. She is the first black woman mayor in the city of Philadelphia. You got to give her credit for that. Whether we agree or disagree, you got to acknowledge that. And because I mentioned that in the newspaper, mentioned that on social media, mentioned on radio, some of my comrades like, oh no, you drinking the Kool-Aid. Now you're going to become a Sherelle Parker accolade. I'm like, no, I'm just giving credit to any black person who succeeded in this system. So we got to give her a shout out. And the thing that we really have to do as black people, we know that Jewish people fight with each other. We know that Latino people fight with each other. We know that Asian people fight with each other. Why? Because they're humans. But you rarely see it in public. That's right. So I'm saying we as black people, if we got some beef with other black people, we should try to resolve it privately. And if we can't have to go public, it shouldn't be about the person. It should be about the platform. I don't dislike you because you're you. I dislike your position on this issue. So we need to understand that, and that way we can present a more unified approach. But having said that, in regard to the Philly election, we ought to acknowledge the fact that a black woman became the first black woman mayor in Philly, that she's the 100th mayor in the city of Philadelphia, that she ran a perfect, flawless campaign, did all the right things. If anybody ever wants to run for mayor in the future, especially a black woman, they better read that book from Sherelle Parker and then follow those steps, because that's how you do it. And some of my revolutionary comrades thought that I was praising her. And again, I stole that line from Michael Corleone. I said, comrades, it's not personal. It's business. And once folks understand that, black folks understand that, then we get to where we get. I talked about the Philadelphia Tribune, which I love. They hired me, despite the fact that I'm a rabble-rouser and a troublemaker. But just recently, they did two things that kind of surprised me. One of the things they did in the May primary when I supported the other candidate, normally, newspapers, radio stations, TVs, they'll always say something at the end of the column or the end of the speech where they'll say something along the lines of, the speaker's opinion is his own and does not necessarily reflect the views of whatever. And that's normally in small print at the end. Well, in the May primary, the Tribune put that like in big letters at the beginning of the article. I'm like, well, I've never seen it there. That was kind of interesting. And then I've never seen the Tribune do an anti-endorsement. They would say who they like, but for the first time in November, they said who they didn't like. And I'm like, why is that? And who they didn't like is the Working Families Party. And I'm trying to figure out, why was it so important for not only the Tribune, and I want to be clear, I love the Tribune. It lets me do what the other white papers who I've written for would never let me do. Philadelphia Magazine would never let me do that. Pennsylvania Capital Star would never let me do that. The Tribune is one of the few, but I was just looking at the situation where in the November general election, they stated that we do not endorse Kendra Brooks and Nick O'Rourke of the Working Family Party. And I'm like, why would you say that if you know what the Working Families Party is about? In fact, let me just read the platform, just a couple sentences. The Working Families Party is a Black-led, multiracial, working-class vanguard of the struggle for such righteous causes as a livable minimum wage increase, universal paid sick days, health care reform, quality public housing, productive student education, student debt slashing, enlightened anti-crime initiatives, human rights, and environmental protection. Who could hate on that? Like, who can hate on it? If it was something there that went against the agenda for black people, then I can see you calling them out. But instead, the Tribune, like many successful black platforms, tends to become part of the establishment. And you can say that's good, you can say that's bad. But for me, it's bad if the establishment is bad. That's why I look at the Tribune, and here's what I wrote, because they endorsed somebody who the other thing they said about that the reason why they weren't supporting the Working Families Party is that the Working Families Party was aggressively anti-establishment, attacking establishment Democrats. That's what it said. Aggressively anti-establishment, attacking establishment Democrats. And I'm like, okay, but do you know what establishment Democrats, who I've voted for ever since I became an adult, in every election here, because for me, it's been about the lesser of two evils. We can talk about that at the end. Somebody's going to win. So should it be the midget bad guy, or should it be the giant bad guy? But somebody's going to win. So I've been voting Democrat for my entire adult life. But I'll never forget, I had a debate on the radio once with a caller who said, well, Mike, you keep telling us to vote for these Democrats. What have they done? I stammered and stuttered. I couldn't give a straight answer. And I'm like, oh no, why couldn't I give a straight answer? Because the best answer is that they're not Republicans. And that's not good enough. I should be able to say this thing, for example, and by the way, I'm going to name him because I respect him, Bob Brady. Who heads the local Democratic Party. Let me give him his credit first. That slavery memorial at 6th and Market is primarily the result of his work. So when I and my organization ATTACK were trying to get stuff done, reached out to elected officials, and it was Congressman Shaka Fattah and Bob Brady, two most instrumental, who made it happen. So I give him credit. But going back to what Michael Corleone said to Sonny, it's not personal, Sonny, it's business. So I give you the credit for that. But then when I look at Philadelphia, that's been under the control of the Democrats for about 1,000 years, I'm saying Philadelphia in 2019, 2020, and 21 was the poorest big city in America. Wow, the poorest big city in America for those 3 years. They had a dropout rate in 2021 through 2023 of 20%, and the functional illiteracy for certain groups of black folks in the city is about 70%. Philadelphia in 1979 became the first city in the country to be prosecuted by the Justice Department for police brutality. I'm not talking about Philadelphia, Mississippi. I'm talking about Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. The federal government looked around and said, we're the worst cops, right there in Philly. That's 1979. That's while the Democrats are in power. In fact, even now in 2023, the city of Philadelphia is under federal consent decree based on an ACLU's lawsuit in 2010 to stop and frisk. 1979, the feds get involved, and to this day, the federal courts are still involved. Democrats are in control. But again, I'm not emotional. I'm not naive. I realize that as bad as it is with the Democrats, it would have been much worse for black people under the Republicans. It's as simple as that. So I'm going to offer you a solution. And by the way, when I say establishment Democrats, I am talking in a general sense, because going back to what I said before about we can't always look at people and judge the book by its cover. They could be doing things behind the scenes that we don't know. And because understand that if you look at my endorsement list, you see people like Daniel McCaffrey for the Supreme Court. Why is this black revolutionary socialist, Michael X, endorsing Daniel McCaffrey for the Supreme Court? Because I understand how politics works. I understand that people call it abortion rights, but it's really not abortion rights. No woman wants an abortion. They didn't get up in the morning and say, hey, I want to abort my baby. But what they do want is they want human rights and bodily autonomy. That's all they want. They want the ability to control their own lives. Well, I see this guy, Daniel McCaffrey, who, by the way, was a great lawyer, great judge on the Court of Common Pleas level, ran for Supreme Court, and I'm sure he and I, ideologically, I don't think he's ever attended a Bob Marley concert. I'm sure he probably didn't listen to a Malcolm X speech. He's not tight with Pam Africa move like I am, but I'm strategic and say that, hey, this guy in this position is better than everybody else running for this position. And somebody's going to be in this position. So we got to be strategic and put aside the emotion and say we're going to do the right thing. Now, that's here in Philadelphia. That's here in Pennsylvania. But the elections were about more than Philadelphia, more than Pennsylvania. You look across the country, a big election in Ohio regarding a woman's right to choose. And again, we call it a woman's right to choose, but for me, it's bigger than that. It's a human rights issue. And if it's a human rights issue, on the ballot in Ohio, the question was basically, should women have the right to choose? And the public said yes. That was a major victory in Ohio. Then we mentioned the Pennsylvania Supreme Court and Daniel McCaffrey. And I think Dr. Ade talked about the Kentucky governor's election and how there's a guy, Daniel Cameron, who's basically Clarence Thomas 2.0. I mean, it's that bad. I mean, just a monster. And it was so bad that when this guy Cameron was the attorney general, he refused to prosecute the cops who killed Breonna Taylor.
Absolutely. That's right.
That's what we have to look at. So again, I don't expect us to be able to dig Malcolm X from his grave, reanimate him, and run him for mayor and governor and president. And if we could do that, he ain't gonna win, because there's not enough of us to vote for him. But somebody is going to win. And if somebody's going to win, we have to ask ourselves, not so much who do we want in office, but who do we not want in office? That's the vote. It's not about who you want, it's about who you really don't want, because somebody's going to be mayor. Somebody's going to be president. My thing, and I'm going to talk about this in the last couple of minutes, I'm really torn right now regarding Biden versus Dump, because I'm looking at Biden, who basically is an apartheid supporting, genocidal financing, mass murderer. It's as simple as that. And I'm looking at that and like Biden. And when we go to the UN to try to make some progress to stop the bombing, the United States says no. We're not going to stop. I'm like, my tax dollars pay you, Biden. Right. So you're telling me that the money I spend in federal taxes is going to bomb Palestinian babies. And when other countries step up and say, hey, let's have a ceasefire, let's stop, you say no? So I'm looking at that and I'm thinking, it's no way I would ever vote for Biden or any Democrat who takes that position. But then, that's my heart talking. Then my brain says, well, if you dislike this guy, you're going to hate this guy. Because Dump has done some stuff that no president even considered. For example, moving the capital of Israel to Jerusalem. Nobody did that. Even Britain was upset with the United States. Britain, France, Germany, the Allies were like, no, come on, Trump, don't dump. That's his name, not Trump, dump. Don't do that. Don't antagonize. We all agreed that the UN would work with the parties and we'll come up with something. My point is, and this is not to praise Biden, but he didn't do that. He didn't support that. So if I'm so angry with Biden and decide to withhold my vote and then allow somebody who called the Nazis very nice people, somebody who was endorsed by the KKK's David Duke, somebody who had Confederate flag waving racists running through the Capitol on January 6th. So I can yell and scream, and that's why I'm going to wrap this up in a minute or so, and we'll have as much time to talk. I want to hear from you all, like, what do you do? In fact, one of the things I posted on social media, and this was, I must admit, when I was in my feelings about Biden, I said this: don't ask me why I will withhold my vote in 2024 from the Democratic International Genocidal Terrorist Enabler who, as a self-described Zionist, has financed the murder of 5,000 Palestinian babies so far, and why I therefore will stand on the sidelines while the Republican International Genocidal Terrorist Enabler gets elected. Instead, ask yourself why you're voting for any international genocidal terrorist enabler. And that's a great question, but again, somebody's going to win. So I'm going to wrap it up. And by the way, I got like 4 pages of notes. I think I got through the first paragraph. So I'm just going to cut everything else and just say this, because this is important when it comes to what people need to do when it comes to elections. First of all, you have to remember what my political science professor taught me at Cheney. He said, politics is the art of compromise. Politics is the art of compromise. And I realized that. And there are some great African-centered scholars who advised black people not to vote for Hillary Clinton in 2016.
That's right.
And look what we got. It's not that Hillary Clinton was Angela Davis and therefore we should rally around her, but she wasn't Donald Trump. And I think any thinking black person would take a Hillary Clinton over a Donald Trump. And by the way, in my final minute or two, I know I told you all 2 or 3 minutes, 15 minutes ago, but the other thing is Donald Trump, through his platform, social media platform, just indicated that in 2025, after he claims he'll be elected, he's going to build giant immigration camps for mass deportations. Think about that. So again, and this is where I'm going to throw the question to you all. What do you do in these situations? My final 30 seconds, I'll say this. Think globally, act locally. Think globally, act locally. So rally around your local officials. And I'm going to give Mayor-elect Sherrell Parker the benefit of the doubt. She's got some good platforms, some stuff that I don't agree with. Like I said on the radio, we all should go in assuming she'll do the right thing and supporting her until she does the wrong thing. But don't come in giving her the side eye. Assume that it's going to be the right thing. And also remember respectfully that nobody agrees with everybody. That's right. So if there's 9 out of 10 things you like, stay with her. 8 out of 10 things, 7. As long as at least more than half. Hang with her and give her a chance. So revolutionaries, socialists, progressives, leftists like me, we can influence people on the local level through mayor, through city council, working families party, school board, all that stuff. We can also do some political damage on the state level. We might not be able to have great impact on the federal level because it's going to come down to Biden and Trump. So I guess my question for you all as I wrap it up, what do you do in situations like this, where you see what Biden is doing, but you realize that if you get rid of him, it's going to be worse. If you despise Biden, you're going to hate Trump. So I'm asking you all, what do you think? And I'm thanking you all for your time.
All right. Thank you. All right. All right. Wonderful. Fantastic. I tell you, I know there are questions and look, this is a period for questions, not for long essays or speeches. That's a whole different, we do have conferences from time to time, so this is not a conference meeting. This is the time for questions. Attorney Michael Coard is, as always, right on target. The beautiful thing about the MKA Institute is that we believe in freedom of speech, and we believe that anybody who's working for the liberation of African people, they're our friends. People who are working against the liberation of African people are not our friends. So Michael Coard is always welcome here, and he's one of our standard bearers. We're very, very happy. At this time, we do have Dr. Jabali Ade will be passing the microphone around, and we have time for Michael about 15 minutes of questions. But please make your questions short and to the point.
Yeah, Brother Michael Coard, as usual, it's good seeing you and good hearing you speak. Two questions, real short. Do you think that Sherelle Parker can actually reduce crime in Philadelphia? And the second question is, what happened? Why do you think that Daniel Outlaw resigned?
Both good questions. The answer is no one individual can do that. I'd love to think that I'm the greatest man alive, but if I was mayor, I couldn't do it myself. So it's going to take the mayor, it's going to take city council, going to take the police commissioner, going to take the citizens. I mean, for me, my solution is always this. Don't go to the symptom of the disease, go to the disease. So when we see crime, crime is not the disease, crime is not the cancer, crime is the symptom. Because in my work, 99% of my clients, in terms of me being a criminal defense attorney, are young black men. No education, no job training, no father at home, no spiritual centering. If those clients had that, they wouldn't be my clients. So it's not about locking people up and throwing them in jail. That's just dealing with the lesion of the cancer, that sore. How do you get rid of that sore? You get rid of that sore by cutting out the cancer. So you have to ask yourself, and I always tell people, young black men commit crimes for one of two reasons. One, they're genetically predisposed to criminality. Or two, societal reasons. It's one or the other. It's either society or it's innate. We know it's not innate, so it's got to be. If 90% of my clients had gone to Masterman, they wouldn't be my clients. That's right. If 90% of my clients had a father at home, they wouldn't be my clients. So to answer your question, I wouldn't really dump it on any mayor. I would say that I hope the mayor is open enough to realize there's a holistic approach and make sure we got a police commissioner who's not like Frank Rizzo, make sure we have a school board chairperson who understands an African-centered education is key. So to answer your question, and I know this sounds evasive, it depends. If she brings in the right people, yes. If not, no. And in regard to Outlaw, I'm not going to assume I know the answer. I think that she became frustrated with her inability to make change. And also, one of the things that's key for the police department, I'm going to wrap this up in 10 seconds, there's something called Act 111 of 1968. Act 111 of 1968 is a state law that basically gives cops a license to kill. So no matter who the police commissioner is, they can't fire a cop because that act basically says this: even if the cop is on videotape shown committing the act, that's not dispositive. It's still got to go to the American Arbitration Association for them to make the decision. So again, if you know anything about the state law, Act 111 of 1988, you understand that the police commissioner can't get rid of bad cops, but the police commissioner can set a tone for getting rid of bad cops. Great question.
Hello.
Yes, sir.
My name is Duke McCoy.
And I love that Negro Leagues baseball.
Thank
That's my
you.
thing. Let's give him a round of applause for that excellent sweatshirt.
I was at your Valley on 6th Street with my brother. His name is Ron McCoy.
Yes, yes.
And
Can you wave your hand, Brother Ron McCoy? Let's give Brother Ron a round of applause. Brother Ron is one of the elders that helped lay the foundation for avenging the Ancestors Coalition, and that slavery memorial at 6th and Market is because of people like him who laid the foundation. Give him another round of applause. Yes.
And I suggest that people look into the Tribune for to help them, guide them to make a decision on elections, because it really does give you a good insight of what direction to go when you look at the Tribune. If you have internet, if you Google Mike Coard's name, Michael Coard endorsement for 2023, you will see his endorsements for judge and so forth that will help you to make a decision that will be substantial as far as making your vote is concerned. So I really do give out a credit to him on his knowledge as far as
Appreciate that.
helping the common people to have a say in the vote.
Thank you. Let's give him a round of applause. Great comment. And I'm so glad you mentioned the Tribune, because I know I comment on the Tribune a couple times during my presentation, but I don't want anybody to leave here thinking that there's any bad blood. That's right. There is, again, remember that I say what I say in the Tribune, and they let me say it. That's right. I mean, think about that. If they were such bad people, they'd be like, get the hell out of here, write for somebody else. But they're like, we don't agree with you on everything, but we respect your right to say it. And there's an audience that wants to hear what you have to say. There's an audience that wants to hear what the editorial board has to say. We're a black newspaper. We got a platform. We want to hear all black voices. Having said that, please give the Tribune a big round of applause for that. That's important, because usually when people disagree with you, especially when they have the power to turn off your mic, they'll do that. Tribune has not done that. Right. Plus the fact that I sell a lot of papers for them, but that's a whole nother story.
How you doing?
Yes, sir.
I'm going to be a little controversial with my comments. As I travel through the city, I'm the kind of guy that grew up, I thought I was a tough guy or whatever, you know what I mean? Not that I'm out there committing crimes or whatever. Sure. But I don't have no fear. I got fear now. And the reason why I got fear, because when I see these young folks, maybe between the ages, teenagers up to 50, whatever, I think at least 60% of them got a gun on them.
Okay.
Okay? And females.
Okay.
Okay? And so my thing is this. Everybody's against stop and frisk, right? Mm-hmm. But if you don't have to worry about the police approaching you if you got a gun. I mean, that's why they so bold with it, because they ain't worried about nobody saying
I'm glad
nothing
you're
to
saying
them.
This. Keep going.
Same thing with the ATVs. Mm-hmm. They let them know that the police ain't going to chase after you, so they're going to do whatever they want. Mm-hmm. So what alternative do we have stop all this stuff?
Great question. Here's the answer. Many people think that this generation's youth is different from our generation's youth. There is no difference. The only thing is that they got access to tools we didn't have. This is kind of embarrassing, but I'll tell the story anyway. I'll never forget my brother and I and our friends all in high school. Don't ask me how he was able to find a 9mm porno and film and steal a projector from high school and bring it to the hood, and we got a bed sheet and put it on a friend's basement wall. We had to go through all of that stuff to access that porn video. Kids today just gotta pick up the phone. So if we had this phone 30, 40 years ago, we'd be doing the very same thing. I wanna hear your response to this. So the answer is, it's nothing wrong with this generation, because when you're young, you're going to be irrational, impulsive, and stupid. That's just the nature of being young. So I don't want you to think that they're any different from us. They have access to stuff we don't have. The other thing is this. There were more gun control laws when you and I were younger. Right now, anybody can go anywhere and get a gun. When I was a kid, there were gang wars, Norris Street and 25th and Diamond, all that. They actually had zip guns. Anybody know what a zip gun is? That's a block of wood and a rubber band and some nails, and you pull it back on the door latch. Had to go through all that. If they had access to AK-47s in the 60s and 70s, they would have used that. So I don't want you to think that today's young people are any different from us. They just have access to stuff that people your and my age allowed them to have access to. We came up with the internet. We came up with cell phones. We came up with the NRA. So can we as the adults blame the kids for using the tools we gave them? So it's not about them, it's about us. And again, as I said before, and I want to hear your response to this, if those young people had jobs and had schools and had opportunities and went to Masterman, like I went to Masterman, who had a summer job every summer, they wouldn't be doing this. So instead of blaming the symptom, the lesion, blame the cancer that caused it. So if we take your comment, I want to hear your final response to its logical conclusion, let's get all these thugs and lock them all up and throw them in jail. But they got to get out in 5 years, 7 years, 10 years. They're going to get out unless you say lock them all up forever. If you want to go there, that's something different, but you're not saying that. So if you're saying lock them up for a short period of time, you think they come out better or come out worse? So again, it's not so much about focusing on that pus-filled, ugly lesion. It's focusing on the cancer that caused the lesion. And going back to stop and frisk very quickly, people have no idea where that came from. It's a 1968 U.S. Supreme Court case called Terry versus Ohio. It's a very long story. I'll give you a 30-second version. A cop who had been a Cleveland, Ohio cop for 27 years. He knew everybody in Cleveland. He was chilling in an unmarked car one day. He saw a black guy on the corner. No big deal, not gonna bother the black guy. He saw a second black guy come over to the first black guy, and they huddle. He looks at him, but doesn't approach them. Then a third black guy comes to the second. So you got 3 black guys who 12 different times walked half a block up the street in front of a jewelry store and walked back. You see 3 of anybody huddling together, walking back and forth 12 times from the jewelry store, your radar goes up if you're a good cop. So after the 12th time, the cop jumps out of his car, runs up to the jewelry store, sees a bulge in one guy's coat, pushes him up against the wall, spins him around, fills his pocket, finds a gun. Push the other guy, gets his gun. So now that cop got 2 guns from 3 guys about to go into the jewelry store. That was good police work. He didn't go after the first guy by himself. He didn't go after the second guy. He didn't even go after the third guy. He didn't even bother them the first 10 times they cased the joint. That's a Terry stop. So when we talk about stop and frisk today, you think cops are going to wait until 3 black guys get together? You think they're going to wait until they walk up and down toward a bank? So when we talk about stop and frisk, we got to know where it came from. So if it's going to be good police work, then we all want the bad guys caught. But how do we know there's bad guys until we know they're bad guys? Are you suggesting every young black guy with a hoodie gets stop and frisk? You would agree you have to do something. The Terry versus Ohio case said they had to do all those things I just laid out. But thanks for the question.
So my comment to that.
Yeah, I did want to give you a response. Go ahead.
I'm going to use the analogy that you used with McCaffrey. Mm-hmm. That same analogy. I'm the kind of, like, I worked at a high school, right? I was disciplinary
so
at
you
a
know.
high school. And my thing was, in order to keep order in the school, you got to step to these students is out of order. You just
to the ones that are out of order.
Yeah.
Not to all of them.
No, not to all. The ones that are out. The ones that are out of order.
Okay.
Because if you don't step to them, they're going to get emboldened to do, and that's how I feel about the stop and frisk. I feel as though they
Let me just interject. So who do we stop and who do we frisk?
Well, again, yes, there's I could get stopped, all right, but I'm willing to get stopped, and hopefully I come out. I'm gonna keep cool and all that. They shouldn't
stop generally or stopped if you're doing something.
Stop if again,
well, let's not go again. Let's go from the beginning. So stop, period, or stop after you're doing something.
I see where you're going with that.
I'm right? There. I'm already there.
Right? but it's got to be a way to do it where for a little while it's uncomfortable for everybody. But if we are actually able to get a lot of guns off the street, I'm for that.
The right way. I mean, we can't go back and forth, but when you say you're for it the right way.
I understand that people like me could become collateral damage. I understand that.
And you're willing to be that.
Yeah, I am. I'm collateral damage anyway.
Next time I get stopped, I'll point the cops to you. Oh, we got to get to the young man here, the jeans, eventually, but the sister first.
I would have came with my name is Sister Charlotte Brown. I would have came with the mindset of saying that we are lost and we don't know information and there's a gap in between our generations. I would have said that. However, Michael Coard, you always change my mindset. But I will say this: the lack of accessibility. I'm 40. 4 decades. I may be a Rudy Tooty Pooty to a lot of people. However, I'm an educator, and so sorry I'm not an educator of the African-centered institutions, and just like we have here. But I'm an educator, and I teach 2nd, 3rd, and 4th graders. One of the things I learned from young people is their culture and the culture they build based on that cancer or the symptoms of that cancer that happens. And one of the things that was in my mind was, okay, we had this conversation, this dialogue with 4th graders. Y'all like these rappers and y'all like how they dress and how they look, right? So they tell me, I said, lately I've been looking on the corners and I see all of these young people wearing black. So they blame it on this rapper called Lil Durk. And the other guy who had the shiesty mask. So they saying, it's a fad. So when I thought about the Terry stops, when I thought about the stop and frisk, I'm like, if we based it on racial profiling, what they call it, if we base it on that, we're going to have innocent people get locked up because there's a lack of knowledge of what's happening in the communities. Also, they say to me, we like to gather on the corner, we like to do this and do that. When I was younger, my mom didn't want me to do something. I go find the other people that wanted to do something that I wanted to do and hang with them. So they said, they be breaking in houses. I said, no, those bandos. You don't even know the terminology. I said, the children call it bandos, and they like to hang out in their hats and their clothes and whatever. But my whole point is, it changed my perspective on the way I look at things, because we can sit in here and talk and we can all have great minds, but who's talking to the young people? And I feel bad that I didn't bring a young person here today, but I came straight from church. But had it been, I'd have brought a young person here to hear this conversation so that they could defend that kind of dialogue. Thank you.
Well said. Give a round of applause. In fact, thanks to Dr. Asante, it's on YouTube so those young people can see it. You didn't go where I thought you were going when you talked about these rappers and the negativity, because when I hear people today, my age, complain about hip hop today, I'm like, but you bought NWA albums with me. You bought 2 Live Crew albums with me. You brought Lil' Kim albums with me. So if we had social media back then, we would have spread that pollution then as much as they're doing it now. So it's not about them, it's about the tools we created for them.
All right, we're gonna do a quick speed round. I'm gonna do 3 questions and let you answer all 3 if you got a pen or something.
That's perfect.
So just straight to your question. I'll do 1, 2, and 3. Okay.
Oh, perfect. Thank you, Dr. Sun.
Mike, always good to see you, man.
Great to see you.
I knew this guy from his humble roots at Cheney University. He's my roommate.
Let's give him a round of applause. Cheney University, and a member of the best fraternity in the history of humankind.
And I was a little bit of a rubber rouser with him when he was in that time. I want to jump to the national platform. As you spoke about the elected officials who we kind of were standing on.
Certainly.
So that brings me to the Congressional Black Caucus. In my opinion, they've been one of the most ineffective groups on a national level, and yet we do have to try to extricate from them whatever support we can get on the national level. So how would you go about addressing that?
Great question.
That's the first one.
Yeah, I'll hold that.
For if you're in the back, the wire only comes so far.
So my name is Nadira Griffin. I don't have a question. I just wanted to say
You
something.
were on my radio show yesterday.
Yes.
Okay, all right.
Yes. Hi. So what I wanted to say is that I'm totally against stop and frisk. I remember when stop and frisk was here and I was going to a store and I thought about it. I said, no, this is a bad neighborhood. It's a drug-infested neighborhood. And I was afraid that I was going to be pulled over. So I jumped back in my vehicle and I drove. It wasn't even 2 car lengths the cops came speeding around the corner and held everybody up. So I'm a female, and I know that I've always lived my life right, and I was afraid. And I have sons, so I don't want my sons to be subjected to these things. So, oh, wait a minute. Wait. Oh, and if we bring back some of the old things, because we have to give the people in the urban communities and the impoverished neighborhoods opportunities, and we have to replace some of those things. First, we have a lack of education. People don't have a quality education, don't have a quality of life. They're unemployed. They closed down the POW centers, a lot of POW centers, a lot of libraries. These were resources that people actually went to and stayed out of trouble. So if we bring back these things, and we have to educate our children and make sure that they have phonics and cursive writing.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Let's give her a round of applause.
Michael, my brother, it's always good to see you. Haven't seen you in a while.
Good seeing you.
God bless you. But as younger people, we were part of the AUC 20. You might remember we shut down Morris Brown College. We locked ourselves in the AUC building. And God bless us to get out of that Farrakhan. We came out. But I want to ask you a question. By being a free, educated black brother, the black politicians in this city, how will they address the elephants in the room? My question is to you, because I don't want to bring out every name, but, you know, the Bobby Heenans around us. And you understand what I'm saying? That control the atmosphere in the city. That still controls the atmosphere that the city promised they're supposed to get incarcerated. Certain of them went to Jersey and they're not in jail yet. You understand? I'm informed about that situation because I dealt with them personally. So I'm asking you as a free, educated black man. We have a new mayor. We have they're black, but they're these elephants. How will they address these elephants in the room?
Great question. And we got one final question.
Okay. Joyce Johnson. I was in a conversation with the former director of Alumni Association for Cheney University, Karen Roach. And her position was she didn't like Biden for similar reasons, and her position was she was going to advocate voting for
Dr. Cornel West?
Yes, Cornel West. And my thought was when you put the question forward, we do need to identify somebody that we can rally around and how we could, possibly mold them to become more African-centered, possibly. So my question is, what are your thoughts about that strategy?
Great question. And I'll quickly respond to each of them. First, it was my frat brother, Mike Frazier, was asking about the Congressional Black Caucus. I would agree that they are, generally speaking, ineffective. So what's the solution? One, run better candidates because they're elected locally. So it's not as if you're running for Congress, you need people all over the country. Find some good ones who could win here in this area. But even more important, a lot of the fault of bad elected officials are bad constituents. They don't ask for anything. If you set in these elected officials' offices, if you wrote to them, if you attended local meetings, if you did all that, you'd fire up these people. So I think they move slow because we move slow. So one, we don't do what we need to do to put pressure on them, and two, if we don't like them, we don't run the right candidates. Great question. Sister Nadira asked about stop and frisk. I'm so glad she mentioned that because she takes the same position I take, that when we talk about stop and frisk, when there's an encounter between white cops and young black men, it always turns out bad. So to open the door for stop and frisk creates more encounters. What's going to happen from that encounter? It's not going to be good. Great question. The third gentleman asked about the elephant in the room. I'm assuming he's talking about racism. If Dr. Sante gives me 6 more hours, I could explain my answer. But let me just say this. The answer is if black elected officials recognize racism as the undercurrent of everything, and it is. Du Bois talked about race in the 20th century. That's the 21st century, 22nd. Just as long as white folks in America, same thing will happen. So the answer is we have to be strategic and unified. And what I mean by that is this. People confuse unity with uniformity. They're not the same. unity and uniformity. It's almost like the All-Star game, football game, All-Star game. You got different players from different teams with different uniforms, but they're still united against the other side. So we don't all have to think like Sherelle Parker, but at least we can unite with her and other elected officials on the stuff we agree with. The final thing I'll say is this: whether it's race or anything else, instead of black people highlighting what they disagree about, let's start highlighting what we agree about. Because people always come at her, including me, for stop and frisk and other stuff, but there's probably 50 other things that she's doing that we like. But we spend so much time hating on what we don't like, we never even find the stuff we like. So again, give black elected officials the benefit of the doubt. And finally, last question from Sister Joyce was a great question. And the short answer is, I don't know the answer. I'm so devastated by Biden's complicity and apartheid genocide. Yes. Before he did this, I'd be one of his strongest supporters and explaining why it's not just about going against Dump because he's bad, but I would always say Biden is a good man. I can't say that anymore. So, but what I can say is this: remember the line from Michael Corleone to his brother Sonny. It's not personal, it's business. I love what Dr. Cornel West stands for, but ask yourself, why are Republicans financing Cornel West? They know that a vote against Biden is a vote for Trump. That's right. Thank you, Dr. Asante.
I tell you, that's fantastic. It's beautiful. I mean, it's so wonderful to have, I tell you, the sharpest, smartest, most brilliant attorney we have, Michael Coard. Michael, thank you so much. You honor us so much. No. And you know, the one thing we do know, and we take away from this with the Biden situation, is that Biden has lost an enormous amount of African American and young people's vote by what he has done with the Israeli-Palestinian issue. It is unbelievable, and it's unfortunate, but we will see where this is headed, because quite frankly, it reminds me of Reagan and apartheid in South Africa, when the ANC under Mandela was called a terrorist organization because the black people were fighting for their liberation. And now absolutely. And so this is a very, very tough situation for Biden, and we will see how he will get out of it, if he will get out of it. But then if we have the choice of Trump and Biden, then it is obvious it's obvious who we don't want. I mean, I think that's important. And I just say this, I think that the candidacy of Cornel West is a candidacy that is meant also to chasten the Democrats and to chasten the Biden administration. I don't believe, I think that I don't even believe that Cornel West believes that he's in this to win the nomination. But he's in it to chasten Biden. I wish somehow that we also understood that it is nothing but business. That's what this is. And we have to, as African people, we have to vote our best interest. And we have to vote, and this is a little slightly different from the way Michael put it, but let me put it this way, that we have to vote on the basis of people who have the proper character and culture. That's the key. I think, and this is why Larry Krasner, in my judgment, was a good selection, and why he is a good person in office is not on his phenotype. It is the character and culture of the person. And that's what you have to make. And I just want to thank you, Michael, again, for always challenging us. I want to thank the audience. I'm sorry? Oh, you just... what question is? We on the air, and we don't have a microphone for you. What is the question? Quickly.
I got a question for Michael Coard.
Oh, well, just can you ask him afterwards? Can you ask him afterwards?
I really want everybody in the room to hear this.
Is it? Are we
still here. They want to do the broadcast. We'll wrap up on the air.
All right.
We on? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Once the broadcast is over, then we'll stay. Okay. You won't mind? You don't mind? All right. Thank you. Just 1 minute. So we want you to come back on the 26th. Dr. Nadav will be talking about an Afrocentric curriculum for the schools, and on the 26th, 4:00 here. Where we say we call upon our ancestors, the mother of our mothers, the father of our fathers, to always render mercy and to bear witness for the liberation and the victory of all oppressed people forever. And we say it is done, and don't go anywhere. Asante Sana. Thank you very much. All right.